Hello, Dixon.
Hey, Laurent, how you doing again?
I'm good. And yourself?
You know, same old, same old.
Google updates.
Mhm.
Are they still the same? Are we still witnessing the Google dance? How do we interpret those
Do you
updates?
remember the days of Google Dance? And
Of course.
I loved it because for those in the audience that are too young, once a month, I think it was once a month. Yeah, once a month. You know, all the SEOs just sort of sat down because they'd done the PageRank algorithm and they had to update all of the new scores for every single web page on the internet, and they had to sort of one by one go to the things, and you started to see pages going up and down all over the place. And it took 3 or 4 days for the whole thing to settle down, and it meant that you had a month to then go away and play with your PageRank and try and get your PageRank up again and stuff. It was kind of nice. And I know that that's how it worked because when there's a very similar sort of thing when, with Majestic has a fresh index that updates every day and a historic index that updates every month. Well, it's assuming nothing goes wrong with the whole maths and stuff, updates most months. And that update, okay, Majestic doesn't just puts a new index up, so it compiles the index and then switches it online. But so you don't get the dance in the same sort of way. But it does take it takes a month to do that maths. I think Google then moved on to a more dynamic PageRank updating mechanism. So it changed the things slightly, and I don't quite know how that all works. But the Google Dance went away. But those were good times. I like those times, Laurent. Now, I think that people don't understand that there's probably 100 updates happening at any one time, really, because there's the machine learning is doing A/B testing all the time. And when Barry Schwartz comes on and says, I've got rumors of a new update happening and stuff. Yeah, it's easy cannon fodder for Barry, but because he'll never be wrong. But it doesn't mean to say that it's necessarily in your industry, in your quarter. I think people get overly worried about updates because there's just too many of them to be able to worry about it. What do you think?
Well, I think people gotta understand that you have the machine learning doing its thing, and of course it's gonna you have plenty of websites that show is there a lot of movement in the search engine result pages, and if there is, that might be an update. But sometimes it's just machine learning going berserk, and what they're going to do is throw out the data set and do a rollback. So you might have results from a previous day.
Yeah.
How long ago? I don't know, but you see those rollbacks. And I remember in the spring of last year, there was supposedly an update. But I know for a fact from very reliable source, Google lost an index.
Right.
At the scale of Google, they lost an index, and people thought there was an update. No. And there's also, you remember Florida in November 2003?
Absolutely, I remember it because I was in Florida for PubCon. So yeah, that's okay. Its name. So which was also a great party because just after our conference, the same hotel had a swingers conference afterwards. So,
Ooh.
Very interesting. Anyway, yes, Florida, absolutely. Go on.
Well, so following Florida, and I remember Florida because my first network of website all got thrown away with Florida. So that was my first experience with a Google penalty. But then Matt Cutts announced that there was a treaty of non-aggression during the end of the year. So what they do is they don't do any updates November, December. But then what happens is beginning of the year, they're all going to do their updates. They're all going to launch the stuff. So usually beginning of the year, there's a bunch of stuff happening manually. But again, what is the machine learning doing? What are engineers doing?
I think as well. I mean, it's interesting. The we're not going to change too much in November, December kind of message. I mean, because it does hurt people when, you know, just before your biggest time of year for most people, everything changes and you've just built your world up for and then it gets taken from underneath you. But I don't know how seriously they stuck to that, because that period between the end of summer and Christmas for any business is you know, for any engineering business, is a really good, you know, you power through, you bring out products, you kind of develop things at that sort of time. And I think it would be pretty impossible for Google to put things off until January, unless they knew it was going to be a really big stinker. You know, when something's ready, they want to launch it. They want to launch stuff because they need to carry on with the next thing. They're a agile organization, and they're trying to push out update after update after update. The reason that I think that they kind of made the sort of whole caffeine thing is so that they could then be running lots and lots of different tests and things with different parts of the system at the same time. And I think it's impossible to take an organization that size and then say, right, between November and December, let's not do anything. They're not going to do that.
Moreover, what do you think? Because Florida, from my understanding, was when they introduced the topical PageRank. So that was huge. That was a big thing. But nowadays, I mean, what do? Are they really breakthrough updates? We spoke about it previously that right now, RankBrain is the boss at Google. I don't believe there won't be any more like drastic changes like the introduction of the topical PageRank or caffeine or something like that. Well, caffeine is not algorithm update. It's more like infrastructure, but still, there are consequences on the algorithms. But yeah, I agree that maybe they just keep on doing their stuff. But and also important, when you really look at the winners and the losers of those so-called updates, and especially the losers, I'm like, man, they deserve to I mean, sometimes they don't, but most of the time.
Usually. Yeah. I mean, you say that, but I think this move from you know, a page-based index to a topic-based index hasn't, at least in the short term, has not improved Google's overall results. I think that Google's overall results were better 2 or 3 years ago than they are today. Now, I think that, you know, machine learning takes a while to get there, and you know, and it's still pretty damn good, you know. But I think that there's a way to go. Myself, I think that the old approach was probably finessed, you know, to quite a good degree, and this new idea of trying to create a knowledge graph that knows everything and has it centrally database, I suppose, is taking time to work, and you lose a lot of granularity when you try and say, okay, here's 10,000 websites that, well, you know, here's 1,000 web pages that are talking about how to tie a bow tie. We only need to know how to tie a bow tie, so we don't need those 1,000 pages. We just need to make sure that we've got the best of that, and then have our own information on how to tie a bow tie. Makes absolute sense, providing the answers are black and white. But it doesn't make so much sense when there are shades of grey, when there's nuance, when there's a need for variety in the responses, and the need to say, right, okay, well, you know, so if somebody's saying, right, best flowers for your garden, for example, well, that's a massive conversation that has no right answer. And if you try and create a right answer, then you lose all of the nuance between someone having, you know, clay soil versus another one having peat versus, you know, chalk or whatever it may be. So there's all this sorts of stuff going on that's dumbing down. A knowledge graph actually dumbs down the information a little bit and and that's a bit of a problem. So I don't think that it's getting better at the moment. But anyway, going back to the updates, though, there's another thing in there, in that Google doesn't have to do an update for something to change significantly in your world. If all of a sudden, well, so potentially, you know, with the world going on now, there's going to be some big websites going pop in the near future, you'd assume. So if those big websites go pop, that is going to change the underlying fabric of PageRank, for example. Mm-hmm. So you may not have a link from Le Monde, but if Le Monde went pop, and it links to 4 other websites that are very key to your backlink profile, then they lose some backlink profile, you lose all your backlink profile, and you didn't even know, because you don't have that causal relationship of what may happen, you know, several links away on the internet.
Well, furthermore, I think that I'm guilty of knowing how we knew from the start how we must work, right? Now this whole semantic trend, and we're very much involved in that. We knew it from the start, but just why do you need to work very well when it works by doing half of the quarter of what is required? It was so easy, but the shortcuts are getting shorter, and we must work better and better. Meaning that if you way to do SEO, and I wear a black hat, so I'm not a Teletubbies, right? I come from the dark side, but I know where is the line, right? And I know very well how to manage the risk. But if you know how to do well your job, whatever the update, every single update just strengthen, make my way stronger, basically. It reinforces what I thought along the way. And when I look at my old SEO tips from 10, 50, same stuff. I mean, nothing changed, nothing.
Yeah, I think if nothing's changed, then your tips probably weren't as black hat as you thought then, because they're playing to the long-term game. And I think that's good. What I would say for anybody that worries about updates, it's a very dangerous place to be as an SEO. It's your easiest way of having a nervous breakdown. Because I used to run an agency. I used to run Receptional in the UK, and I started that in 1999, and went all the way through to whenever I sold it. And it was horrible when you woke up in the morning. And so what you would do with a client is, in the first few months, you do all the things you need to do, and they start getting more and more better rankings, better traffic, all looks good and stuff like that. And at some point, you've got it more or less optimized. At that point, there's a very big problem, because the only thing you can do is wait for the algorithm to change, and the rankings will crash. If it was optimized, then by definition, change the algorithm, you're going to crash. So it's a difficult way to live if you're going to live by the algorithm updates.
Well, the trick is you need to build actions strong enough to trigger the algorithms, but you got to stay below what's called statistic anomaly, right? I mean, you look at Majestic and you see a peak of backlinks. Okay, what's behind this peak of backlinks? Is it you hit the front page of Reddit and you got tons of links, or did you buy links or automated?
It's more likely a site-wide link from one website.
Exactly. I mean, it's you gotta play around triggering, pleasing the algorithms with powerful actions, but you got to be enough. Let's take a specific example. Before Penguin, so prior to 2013, right? I think that's so.
Yep.
Automatic links with a tool like Xrummer, you could do over 2,000 links a minute, mainly profiles of forums.
Yeah.
That was, so today, aggressive linking strategy would be one link a day.
Yeah.
So you go from 2,000 links a minute to one link a day in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So of course you gotta follow. Common
Trends.
sense of what the update tells you, but it doesn't mean that we didn't know that one link a day would be more proper than 2,000 links a minute, right?
Well, I think the thing that really changes is the values of the links. Really, I think that those 2,000 links a minute, when Penguin kind of really worked itself out, or really when the reasonable surfer model kind of worked its all way through, or most of those links, well, Penguin kind of for a while made them negative value, it would appear. I think they kind of like just blank them out now. But yeah, when Penguin arrived, that caused a real problem for a lot of SEOs. Well, all the SEOs just ended up with different clients because everybody kind of, left their agency and went to another agency. So,
the SEO world stopped breathing for like 2 or 3 months. I remember it was genius. Speaking about updates, Florida was a big one, but Penguin and Panda, it put everyone, it was more like a PR move than really algorithm update, but everybody was stopped right away.
It changed the game, didn't it? Changed the game. I mean, those updates were really good. I mean, I think that tools like SEMrush and stuff like that, they kind of and Moz have Weather Vane and Dejan SEO has one as well, that try and measure the volatility of sites of the rankings and things. I think they're quite interesting because they give you a generic idea of when something's big may have happened, but they tend to be I think if you rely on them too much, well, you can't rely on them. Okay, it says something's changed, but then you spend your whole time trying to figure out what the hell's changed, and and that becomes quite subjective unless Google volunteers some information on the subject.
And the last thing I see is, and that's tricky because there is Barry is announcing an update, right? And your site lost 90% of the traffic. So, okay, that's because of Bert or Penguin. But it doesn't mean that all the other filters stop working because there is a new update. So you could be hit with something else. And that's very tricky. True. But from my point of view, it doesn't matter where the problem comes from. The only solution is how you're going to send a proper signal to please again Google, and that's easier than trying to go from update to update. Just try to work out like the long-term game, and let's rephrase it. If you're proceed to aggressive SEO, just don't complain, right? If you get hit, just don't complain. Stop. I see, and recently, like a Belgium website got hit, and starting complaining and crying. Dude, you leave 99% of your money comes from Google. You get hit because you played around with. I think they did like guest blogging stuff, and come on.
So maybe that leads to our next meeting. We should talk about EAT as a ranking factor.
Yeah, because this one we spoke a little bit over our 15-minute
mark. Take it on to the next one.
Cheers. See you next time.